A figure stumbles through an endless blizzard, leaning into the wind, each step a final, desperate effort. Some people are driven to the edges of the map and beyond. These are the stories of explorers who never came home. Number 10. In 1957, noted scientist Carl Patterson Schmidt was examining a new snake species at his Chicago museum. The young boomslang snake was notoriously shy, but this one suddenly lunged and bit him on the thumb. Believing the dose of venom was too small to be fatal, he decided against medical treatment, a fatal mistake. Instead, he went home and began taking detailed notes in a diary, documenting the effects of the venom on his body. He calmly recorded his own death, from chills and nausea to internal bleeding, until he could no longer hold the pen. Number 9. In 2016, British adventurer Henry Worsley attempted what no one had done before, crossing Antarctica alone. He was completely unassisted, carrying all his food and supplies for the 1,000-mile journey on a sled. For 71 days, he battled brutal temperatures, exhaustion, and the immense solitude of the empty continent. But with just 30 miles left to go, his body gave out. He was too weak to even get out of his tent. In a heartbreaking final radio call, he requested a rescue, his voice full of disappointment at his failure. He was airlifted to a hospital, but died of peritonitis. He was so close to finishing his impossible dream. Number 8. Donald Crowhurst was an amateur sailor who entered a race to sail solo around the world in 1968. His boat was unfinished and his experience was limited. He was completely unprepared for the dangers of the open ocean. Facing failure, he began to cheat. He turned off his radio and reported false positions, pretending to be racing ahead. For months, he drifted alone in the Atlantic, descending into madness while the world believed he was a hero. He filled his logbooks with unhinged theories and calculations, convinced he could transcend his physical form. His ghost ship was found adrift and empty. His final entries suggest he calmly stepped off the boat into the sea. Number 7. British explorer Percy Fawcett was obsessed with finding a mythical ruin he called the Lost City of Z. In 1925, he ventured into an unmapped part of the Brazilian Amazon with his son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh. They were searching for evidence of a sophisticated ancient civilization that he was convinced existed deep in the jungle. The team sent back letters for 5 months, describing difficult conditions, but remaining optimistic about their quest. Then, after a final message saying they were entering unexplored territory, the communication stopped forever. Dozens of rescue missions failed to find them. They were simply swallowed by the jungle, their fate unknown to this day. Number 6. In the summer of 1911, 2 teams raced to be the first humans to reach the South Pole. British explorer Robert Falcon Scott led one team. Norwegian Roald Amundsen led the other. It was a race for national glory. After a miserable journey, Scott and his 4 companions arrived at the pole, only to find a Norwegian flag already there. Completely demoralized, they began the 800-mile journey back, battling starvation, frostbite, and despair. One man died from an injury. Another, knowing he was a burden, walked out of their tent into a blizzard, saying he might be sometime. The last 3, including Scott, were trapped by a storm just 11 miles from a supply depot that would have saved them. They died in their tent. Scott's final diary entry simply reads, "For God's sake, look after our people." Number 5. Diane Fossey was a researcher who devoted 18 years of her life to studying mountain gorillas in Rwanda. She fell in love with the gentle giants and became their fiercest protector against the poachers who hunted them. She waged a personal war against them, destroying their traps, burning their camps, and even kidnapping their cattle. Her aggressive tactics made her many enemies among those who profited from the illegal poaching trade. In December 1985, she was found murdered in her cabin, struck down by a machete, an item commonly used by poachers. Her killer was never brought to justice, but her work helped save the mountain gorillas from extinction. Number 4. In 1937, Amelia Earhart, the world's most famous female pilot, set out to fly around the globe. She and her navigator, Fred Noonan, had already flown more than 22,000 miles, crossing 4 continents. They took off from New Guinea for the most dangerous leg of the trip, a long flight over the open Pacific. Their destination was Howland Island, a tiny speck of land less than 2 miles long. It would be incredibly hard to find. During the flight, her radio calls grew desperate. She was running low on fuel and could not see the island. A nearby Coast Guard ship heard her final garbled transmissions. And then there was only static. The largest sea search in history found nothing. The plane, the pilot, and her navigator had vanished completely. Number 3. George Mallory was Britain's greatest climber, and he was consumed by one goal: conquering Mount Everest. When a reporter asked him why he wanted to climb the world's highest mountain, he gave the famous answer: because it is there. In June 1924, he and his young climbing partner, Andrew Irwin, made their final push for the summit. Another member of the expedition watched them through a telescope. He saw them high on the ridge, moving steadily upwards. Then the clouds rolled in, obscuring the view. Mallory and Irwin were never seen alive again. For 75 years, the world debated the mystery. Did they reach the top before they fell? In 1999, Mallory's perfectly preserved frozen body was found, but the camera that might have held the answer was missing. Number 2. In 1845, Sir John Franklin led 129 men on 2 ships to find the Northwest Passage. His ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were fortified for the Arctic and stocked with 3 years of provisions. After they were last seen by a whaling ship, the entire expedition vanished, sparking one of history's greatest maritime mysteries. We now know the truth. The ships became trapped in impenetrable sea ice and were held fast for 2 winters. Franklin died, and the surviving crew abandoned the ships, hoping to walk hundreds of miles south across the ice. Written notes and graves found by Inuit hunters told a story of lead poisoning, disease, and slow starvation. But the most horrific evidence came from the scattered bones of the crew, which showed clear marks from knives. Trapped in the frozen wasteland, the last survivors had resorted to the ultimate taboo to stay alive: cannibalism. Number 1. Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, was a modern explorer who wrestled giants for a living. He wasn't searching for lost cities, but for a connection between humanity and the world's most dangerous animals. For years, the world watched him have countless close calls, always escaping with his signature grin and boundless energy. In 2006, he was filming on the Great Barrier Reef. Bad weather prevented filming sharks, so he looked for other subjects. He decided to get some footage of a large, normally peaceful bull ray in shallow water, something he had done many times. As he swam over the animal, it suddenly struck upwards with its tail, a 1 in a million defensive reflex. The barb pierced his heart. He pulled it out, but the damage was done. The whole incident was caught on camera. His cameraman and best friend said Irwin looked up at him calmly and said his final words, "I'm dying." The drive to explore comes with great risk, but for some, the greatest risk is never exploring at all.